Welcome back to the Rebel's Edge. Pete and I are going to break down exactly what's going on with Apple and whether or not there is indeed going to be that Air phone, whatever that. See this in my hand right now? That's an Air phone. Hello? We're going to have all that and more on today's Rebel's Edge. Bang. Well, another day, Pete, another new product from Apple that might not be so new. It might look an awful lot like that. Maybe it's just this much bigger, or maybe it's just this much faster. But one of these days we'll break out of that universe, Pete. But for now, an awful lot of folks are still anticipating the iPhone 17 and maybe the iPhone Air.
Yeah, really impressive. Tim Cook is really going after it.
Yeah, he is an innovator.
Yeah,
that's Pete Najarian, folks. I'm Jon Najarian. Let's dive right into macro, Pete. Macro, of course, it's going to be okay. Inflation data have basically pushed us, and employment data, to believe that the Fed is going to make that interest rate cut on the 17th of September. That's following their two-day meeting. And we're getting more and more possibility that we're going to break 4, Pete. Right now, the 10-year is right at 4, and we could break it today or we could go after it next week, whatever. Bond market's reflecting the sentiment that we're going to see the cut, right?
Absolutely. And you know what? I think it's more and more a possibility, John, that it's not just a quarter point. That doesn't mean that we're going to get the half point, but I'll tell you, it's definitely interesting. And when you look at the 10-year, as you point out, we're sitting there right at 4%. It could very easily do a little bit of a dip below. I don't know if it's sustainable for how long or not, but it's interesting for sure as we've been watching this and this move that we've watched for a continued period of time. Obviously, the employment numbers, like you said, those are pretty crazy. And so with that, we're seeing that 10-year drop all the way to 4% basically right now. And it's just a matter of time, I think, before we start slipping below there. But I think that we are going to get the quarter point, but I'm starting to feel a little bit more, John, like that 50 basis point. That could happen.
Well, speaking of slipping, Pete, I'll go right into Fantastic Futures and say, earlier today, we were up over 12,200 for Bitcoin. And that's when Tom Lee was on CNBC, I think, with Andrew Ross Sorkin, and he was talking about, oh yeah, I see it doubling by year end. Tom's a very optimistic guy. I'm not making fun of him. I'm just saying he's optimistic.
Yeah.
Instead, it reversed, Pete, right after he went off air, and it's down about $1,100 right now, back down to 111,000 to the US dollar. So that is my Fantastic Future.
How about this? And you know, the Burl Ives trade continues, John, because I'm sitting there looking at silver and gold, and you look at silver, it is pressing towards $42. We are dang close. We might even have crossed over it, John, but last I looked on gold, it was very close to 3,700. It was making a pretty violent move to the upside. So that trade continues to be on, and it's, you know, the move that we are seeing there and the growth that we are seeing there of buyers. And of course, you and I have talked about GLD. We've talked about a lot of different things in that space, but to see gold and silver both making the move that we're making certainly is reflective of how people are looking at the markets themselves right now.
Well, as we always do then, folks, we dive into stocks, and we're going to highlight one that has unusual activity all over it. That is TECK Resources, Pete. So apparently TECK Resources is going to be getting together with Anglo American. They're going to put these two companies together, a merger of almost equals, even though Anglo American shareholders are going to own 62% of the company. But when you look, Pete, at the multiple hits of unusual activity just since the 2nd of September, that really tells the story to me that something might have leaked because they were buying with the stock at 33. Almost exclusively, they're buying September 3650s. Then they're buying November 39s. Then they're buying November 38s and so forth.
Yeah.
Somebody had an inkling, and they're getting rewarded pretty big today for that inkling.
Oh yeah, especially when you consider the fact that there it is, right there at $40. We're talking about a 14% move to the upside, John. This deal is a monster. I mean, it truly is. $53 billion deal market cap wise, 70% exposure into the copper world. I'm just going to go straight to where I've been going and just wanted people to understand the investment banking. How about the fact that it's Goldman Sachs, it's Morgan Stanley, BMO is a part of it. There's a few others as well, but the big three right there, and obviously representing Canada as well. They're going to save $800 million annually, so they say. So there's a lot to this whole trade. This is a monster. This truly is. And again, the investment bankers, I think, are the winner when it's all said and done. Obviously, it's great for tech as well as Anglo, but I like what's happening with the investment banks right now and how many times. And we're just going to keep on pounding the table, John, because it's $2 billion here. It's $3 billion there. This one being $53 billion market cap. I'd say that these guys are doing pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah, 53 billion. You're right, Pete. And by the way, folks, if you want to learn to trade the unusual activity that we see, sure, you can just buy the stock or you could just buy an option. But we're going to show you more strategies than just those two at the Rebel Boot Camp. It goes on September 19th and 20th. All the in-person seats are sold out. So you can't get it unless you buy it on, I don't know, StubHub or something. You can't get it, but you can get a virtual ticket. And the virtual ticket gives you another $200 in purchase power where you can get that seat virtually, see everything that goes up on stage the 19th when we're trading live, Saturday when we're talking about trades and giving you even more education. And the $200, you could apply it towards more education. You could apply it towards any of our myriad of offerings for subscriptions. You could do that by just clicking that QR code and signing up. You're doing it from the comfort of your own home, and we certainly hope you'll take advantage of it.
Yeah.
All right, Pete, let's talk about Wolfspeed.
Yeah.
Now, Wolfspeed is an innovator of wide bandgap semiconductor. Now, they had been basically in bankruptcy. The company received court-approved approval for its reorg, and for that reason, it popped like 60% like that this morning. It's holding on to a gain of about 40%, but apparently the stock's going to be able to come back, Pete, and the people that bet on that are being rewarded pretty big.
They certainly are, John, and it reduces the debt by about 70%, gives them an opportunity to restructure, redo what they're doing, and they did hit all the way up a little bit over $2. I think that might have been in the pre-market, but nonetheless, a really nice, violent move to the upside for these guys. The approval process, the Chapter 11, all that, hopefully for them, for their sake, is something of the past, but certainly giving them an opportunity. Now, when you still look at the 52-week, John, you're talking about a stock that actually was as low as 40 cents at one point, for all the right reasons, and a high of 17.50. So nice move today, a little bit over $2. It pulled back just a little, but at least they've got this second chance in front of them right now for Wolfspeed.
Yeah, and you do away with 70% of a company's debt, they're running like they just took off a 100-pound weight vest.
Yeah.
So watch this one going forward, folks, WOLF. Yeah. And watch this one, a Netherlands-based company, Pete, in AI. That would be Nebius, NBIS. Now, they call themselves Nebius Group because they have a bunch of different artificial intelligence. And they just inked a deal, Pete, with Microsoft that's going to be worth almost $17.5 billion with a B dollars over the next 5 years, potentially almost $20 billion. Yeah. So Microsoft doing this deal with Netherlands-based Nebius Group, pretty interesting, wouldn't you say, Pete?
Oh gosh, yeah. And we're talking about this multi-year thing. You were saying it's five-year deal for the infrastructure, the data, and they're giving all the power and the computing ability that they talk about. We talk about it all the time. The data centers and NBIS. It's up 41% today. It's not so bad, John. I mean, that's a pretty nice jump. Look at that. Absolutely incredible. 52-week highs. It hit early today. It was close to $98. Just an extraordinary move because of what's going on between them and Microsoft. Great deal for Microsoft. That's what they're looking for. Great deal for these guys, obviously, when you take a look and you're saying, well, potentially this could be $19 billion plus. I would say that this is probably the lead as far as today in terms of size. This is a massive move. And certainly Nebius Group is really having a great day. They've had good days in the past. This is definitely the best day I've seen for them. It's unbelievable.
Well, another one with a best day, Pete, is Planet Labs.
Yeah.
But it was in the rearview mirror now, unfortunately, because they did report some great earnings. The stock popped to a new 52-week high, $9.71, I think, Pete. And then it started pulling back. I'm not going to do the Rosanna Dana tragedy stwalk, but it's not, because it's not tragedy, but it did pull back. Everybody was kind of hands out when it popped all the way up to 971, Pete. And I guess one of the questions I'd have for you is, why would people be selling here after such a great performance?
Yeah, it's a great question, John. I mean, I looked at everything. I looked at the balance sheet. The balance sheet looks absolutely fine. You look at the numbers, the revenue is up 20%. They talk about a beat by about 11%. So across the board, they raised their full year guidance. They beat on the Q2 as far as the earnings itself. The stock is up about 40% in the last week. It's been making a great move. I really couldn't tell you. This is one where I was digging, couldn't find anything. I mean, when you look at the forecast for growth, and it's still about 18% for the next 3 years they forecast out, John. I'm a little bit surprised by this one. I'm not sure why as much of a pullback as they've gotten, but interesting nonetheless, for sure. This is one of those where they hit everything that you would expect to hit. And so why they are not holding on to some of those highs, I'm not sure, especially because of the fact that I like what the balance sheet looks like. So it's interesting to see where it is. I think it's probably got some legs into the future, but maybe it's just a little bit too much because of some of the move before this day actually came apart. And we talk about in the last week, 40% move. That's a hell of a move for a stock.
Yeah. So maybe it just needs a little rest, Pete.
Yeah.
What do, folks? They do satellite imagery of the planet every day. So if you wondered if somebody's building a base somewhere, well, you could probably see it on a satellite image and so forth, or obviously weather and other things, not just military. But Planet Labs apparently said they want to raise like 300 million, Pete, through a convertible senior debt offering. Mm-hmm. And near as I could figure, that's why it eased back after being up at 970, and right now it's back down to whatever, $9.12. 300 million for a $2.7 billion company is not that big a deal, but apparently it was enough to have some people step to the sidelines for a bit.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are here, as you could hear and see behind me, at SIBO Global Markets. We always appreciate when our friends in Chicago let us film from here on the floor. And it was a tough day, a tough night, in particular for a lot of those guys and gals back there, Pete, that went to the game, because a lot of them did. And there were some long faces in there because the Bears looked like they were taking the Vikings apart, but they just couldn't get enough separation. I mean, you know, the Vikings kept staying within striking distance, unfortunately, for the Bears. And even though J.J. McCarthy was getting just hammered in the first half and the third quarter, he came back with a fabulous fourth quarter. And that's what this video is going to give you guys a little view into. So let's watch.
Yeah. Well, you know, he hadn't played, John, since going all the way back to January of 2024. So, you know, that was college, by the way. And so it's something where something happened in the second half. Like you said, maybe it's the fourth quarter, whatever. But this kid has got it. And we've talked about that for a while now. He's been a winner at every single level. And when you see him looking down the field and finding the right guys, the right receivers, and using his own legs to run, pretty amazing what he was able to accomplish, because he was getting beat up. And the Bears were playing very good football. I mean, on both sides of the ball for most of the game, at least the first half for sure. And they dominated. They had that interception too from J.J. McCarthy. But it was really interesting, John, just to see how they were going to play the game and what the Vikings were able to do. They were able to run the ball a little bit. I think one of the biggest problems for the Bears might have been the number of penalties and the yards they gave up off of that as well. That was one of the issues. But interesting to watch. It was a fun game because of the fact that it was pretty daggone close as you got into the fourth quarter and the Vikings making the comeback that they made. But I'm sure the Bears are kind of kicking themselves for allowing them to get back into the football game.
Yeah, I'm going to quote Pete here. You got to put your foot on their neck and stomp. Not figure, not actually, but you've got to close it. And they didn't close it. And this is what happens when you don't close it. Yeah. All right. What else you got for some sports today, Pete?
All right. Well, I'll throw this one out to you. I was taking a look. We watched obviously the first week, and everybody's got their opportunity to see everything that's going on in the NFL and what it looks like, all these new quarterbacks and everything else. Who do you think are the top 3 teams in the AFC, NFC? Here's what I came up with, John, and you probably are pretty close to these numbers, but I'm looking at the Bills. Obviously, that was an unbelievable game. I'm going to put the Ravens right behind them. They only got beat by a point, and it was on the road and the whole thing. I really like what Jim Harbaugh is doing with the Chargers. And, a lot of people are sort of looking at a lot of other AFC teams. But I'll tell you what, a team that can throw the ball, that can run the ball, a very ferocious offensive line that's big and athletic, and a defense that's not so half bad either. I'll tell you what, I think those are my AFC teams. And as far as the NFC, I love what I see out of Philly. That game with Dallas, that was a tough game, obviously, for both. And it was a lot of back and forth, a lot of jawing, a lot of flags being thrown. But how about the Washington team? When you look at the Commanders, you can't look past them. These guys, last year, they were great. He started off, Jaden Daniels looked like the same quarterback he was last year. So hopefully, as we get through the season, he doesn't have that sophomore slump. And then I'm going to throw out the Packers. And it's not just because of Micah Parsons, but that's definitely a big piece to the puzzle. But they've got their quarterback that they love. They've got their tight ends. They've got their receivers. They've got their defense. And that defense got a little bit better, maybe a lot better with Micah Parsons being a part of it, John. So I got Philly, Washington, and the Packers as my top 3.
I don't disagree. And I think you're exactly right about the Commanders, Pete. The Commanders, when you've got Jaden Daniels throwing 19 of 30 or something like that, Pete. So in other words, strong TDs. He only had 1 on Sunday, but he certainly looked good. And the team as a whole, from offense up and down the line to defense, looks really good. Yeah. Now, granted, they're playing the Giants.
We forgot that.
The Giants, yeah. But, they basically scored straight up, went up 7-zip, then 7-3. Then it was a nothing third quarter, and they just went away with the win, scoring another touchdown in the fourth and holding the Giants to 0. So this is a team that I'm going to say is one of the best, Pete, in either AFC or NFC.
Yeah, absolutely. How about a little college football, John? I just thought it would be kind of fun to look at this too, and who's going up and who's going down. The one school that's kind of stumbled a little bit, I think, is Clemson. Clemson came in with national title hopes. They still have them, but you can lose the first game to LSU. That is a great football team, and we all know it. They've got great history, and Brian Kelly's done a great job with what they've got at LSU. So that part, you get your loss, and it was game 1. So that's okay, because when you get to November, they're going to kind of forget about that LSU loss. But they damn near lost to Troy, John. You can't do that. I mean, they trailed by 16 points to Troy, and that's not going to go well. Now, they ended up winning the football game, but they're not playing very well, so they've been moving down. They were pretty highly ranked early on, and they started sliding. I'll tell you who's been going up. We talked about this the other day. Illinois got a good quarterback, and they have a potential with Bielema. I mean, they were 10-3 last year. What can they do this year? Who knows? But they're going up. Florida State's going up. And I got a nice sleeper for you. How about South Florida, who's now in number 18, John, because of the fact that they beat up on Boise State, who was ranked in the top 25 when they played them. And South Florida wasn't ranked, but they beat them 34-7. And then they come off and they go to Florida, to the Gators, number 13, and they win that game 18-16. They got Miami this week. If they can somehow get through this gauntlet, I'll tell you what, they're playing teams that are ranked and they're winning and they're doing a great job. Miami's going to be a different animal. It's at Miami, so it's going to be a wild ride. But I'll tell you what, South Florida so far looking pretty damn good as a sleeper this year.
As far as a stinker, the other Florida, University of Florida, stink. But what about the Michigan Wolverines, Pete?
Yeah.
Now, they're not used to losing in the first half of the season.
No.
Frequently, they will, like other teams, be able to get away with playing the little sisters of the poor at, game 1, game 2, game 3 kind of thing. But this time they decided to open up down there in Oklahoma with a pretty fired up Oklahoma team that's also ranked in the top 20, and they put the whipping on Michigan. Yeah. So I know that puts a smile on your face because you ain't a Michigan fan, but they've got to make a comeback here because that team could kind of pull itself apart, Pete. You got a freshman quarterback you gave a bunch of money to, and even if it's Larry Ellison's money and convincing speech by Tom Brady that got the kid there, but that kid was going after some of his own players. And maybe they deserved it, and that's leadership, or maybe they didn't, and he's trying to move the blame over from himself to them. But that was not a good showing for Michigan.
No. Well, Oklahoma's really well coached. We know that. The guy who's the head coach was a defensive coordinator forever, and he's an unbelievably good coach, I think. They got a lot of talent there. They got a great quarterback that transferred from Washington State to come to Oklahoma with this coach and everything. So they've done a lot of things the right way, I think, Oklahoma. Obviously, the SEC is going to be a powerhouse like they always are, but don't sleep on Oklahoma. That's all I would say, because that's a really good football team, and they beat a really good Michigan football team. So I think Michigan will bounce back. I think the rookie quarterback will figure things out, but they're still paying for the price of some of the penalties that they've had put onto Michigan as well, John. So that's something that Michigan's got to deal with coaches and everything else, and the sign stealing and all these other things that are going from the past. But the past isn't over yet for them. So they've got a few things they've got to clean up if they really want to be in this thing.
Well, and I'll just throw one comment quickly out about Clemson, Pete. You're right. They did come back against Troy, and they deserved to win the game, but you got to win those games.
Yep.
And now they've got Georgia Tech. And I like the idea of taking Georgia Tech in this one because Clemson's playing them and giving 6.5. And they didn't show me that they've got that kind of firepower or anything else. So I would be on the Georgia Tech side of that bet.
Yeah, that could be pretty interesting.
Well, thanks for joining us, folks. Remember, you can still sign up for the Rebel Boot Camp and our virtual pass. That's the 19th and 20th of September. If you wonder how the men and women trading behind me, how they make money, these days when you're trading at the speed of light, it's not just a question of high frequency, it's a question of knowing strategies and which strategies can put you in the best position to win. We're going to be showing you those live trading on Friday, the 19th, and then again on Saturday, the 20th, not live trading, but lots of education. And keep in mind, you get that $200 worth of credit for any of our subscription products or any of our educational products. So think about that. And remember, Pete and I will be back with you tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.